We're very excited to have the governor with us here today. There's a lot of ground to cover and not a lot of time. Governor, I thought since you've been elected and you've had a relatively short tenure, since it was just November, your opponents have really worked hard to throw obstacles in your way and in the way of North Carolinian citizens in terms of their ability to exercise their right to vote. Just yesterday, we heard that the Supreme Court decided not to review a case that would have a case regarding one of the most comprehensive anti-voter laws we've seen in a very long time. Maybe we could start with you talking a little bit about the dynamics around that, but the other efforts that you've seen in North Carolina to restrict people's right to vote.
Sure. North Carolina is an epicenter in the country for the fight for the right to vote. When you look at what the North Carolina Republican legislature has done over the last few years, it's been disastrous. The Fourth Circuit said that the North Carolina Republican legislature discriminated against African Americans with surgical precision. They actually asked for data on the habits of African Americans and how they voted and drafted their legislation accordingly. And the court, thankfully, saw through that. But this General Assembly doesn't stop. This was a temporary win yesterday. My Republican governor predecessor had appealed this case to the United States Supreme Court. I withdrew that appeal, which helped us procedurally, I think, to get the Supreme Court not to hear it. But this legislature probably within 10 days will pass another kind of law that will probably eliminate, again, same-day registration. We'll still have some type of voter ID requirement. You know, in their voter ID law that you couldn't even use a campus ID card from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, a state-supported university. That ID wasn't good enough, and we know where that was coming from. But what they've done for my position as governor, they tried to take away the ability of the governor to administer elections. Because what I want to do is to make it easier for people to register and vote, not harder. We want everybody to participate in the process. So they passed legislation taking that authority away from the governor. I vetoed it. They overrode my veto because they have supermajorities in both chambers. I sued them. The court struck it down. So they, again, repackaged it, put a little lipstick on it, passed it again. I vetoed it again. They overrode it again. And the court, again, slapped it down. And you're going to see that with this voter law, too. And I'm certain that the courts would deal with it. I feel confident that they will. But it is important for us to realize what is happening in North Carolina. In 2018, we're going to make some changes in this legislature, but until then, we're just going to have to keep fighting.
And this is an issue that a battle that's going on not just at the state level, but also the county level as well, right? They're also tackling election commission makeup.
Well,
to the
that's
county
what
level.
they were trying to do by taking the authority away from the governor, who appoints the majority of the county boards of election. And they wanted to make it bipartisan, where each side had the same amount. What was going to happen, though, is the default, if there's a tie, the default is for more restrictive voting requirements. So we know what their mission is, and we just have to fight it in the legislature. We have to fight it at the ballot box. We have to fight it in the courts until we get it into a position where everybody has that right. We make it easier for them to do. We need online. We need to expand people's abilities, and we can't have state legislatures discriminating against certain people because who they are or what color they are.
And this issue really does highlight the importance of the judiciary, which is another area where you've had to battle similar changes by the legislature.
Yes, they tried to take the authority away from the governor in numerous areas, and we have sued them in those areas. We believe that we will be successful at the end of the day. The bottom line here is we're working hard to move North Carolina to a position where we know it should be. North Carolina, for decades, was a beacon in the South. We were the first state in this country to open our doors to higher education supported by the public. We had the first early childhood initiative with Smart Start that was a public-private partnership that recognized that it was important to get to kids early in their life in order to get them the opportunity to be ready to learn when they went to school. But over the last 5 or 6 years, with the Republican supermajorities and a Republican governor in the last 4 years, they have tried to take North Carolina in a different direction. It's time for us to get it back. We took the first step with my election for governor, and we are winning some battles, and I'm appointing, for example, I can appoint a secretary of the Department of Environmental Quality who actually cares about clean air and water. And we can appoint people to positions who can have influence over the process. But you're continuing to see this legislature with what they're doing, with their concentration on tax cuts for the wealthiest and for corporations, on workers' compensation, on unemployment insurance, hurting the everyday working people, with these right-wing social issues. That has been the order of the day. They just passed an amendment that took away a number of people's ability to enter the SNAP program when it doesn't cost the state $1. We just turned down federal money that will hurt kids who could qualify for school lunches. That's just wrong.
So, Governor, you mentioned education, and that has been a cornerstone of your governing agenda, and I've been very impressed by the way you've looked at that in a comprehensive lens, from investments in early childhood education, in teachers, community college, workforce investments. Could you talk a little bit about what your priorities are in that area and what your overarching goals are?
The economy overall has gotten better. Unemployment has improved. But for that middle-class family, or that family that's working to try to get into the middle class, a mom who's got 2 kids that she wants to educate them, their wages are stagnant. Things really haven't gotten better for them. And out of frustration, a lot of them voted for Donald Trump, hoping that some change would come to their lives. And I think what we have to do as Democrats and as Democratic leaders, we have to have a positive pocketbook message for them. I want to make sure that we do that. I'm going to emphasize education. Early childhood all the way through our great community colleges and universities. The CEOs that I talk to about coming and expanding in North Carolina, their first question to me is not what's your corporate tax rate, even though now it's the lowest in the Southeast. Their first question is, do you have the people who can perform the jobs that I create? We can put more money in their pockets with those better paying jobs if we have the training and the skills. And I'm going to make North Carolina a top 10 educated state by 2025. And you can do that with empirical data. You can do that by getting more kids in pre-K, which my budget reflects. We want to get to 55% from the 22% where we are now. By getting more kids graduated from high school, we need to be in the 90s. And more people with advanced degrees and certificates that can help land them these better paying jobs in the new economy, because it's chicken and egg. These companies will come if you have the workforce. And our state has the Research Triangle Park, with the second largest banking state in the country. We have the benefit of the foundation that we have built in North Carolina. We're just fighting off these problems that we've had the last 5 or 6 years. We can get it back. We can speak to those middle class families and those working families who are trying to get into the middle class through education as the cornerstone of more money in their pockets. And plus, we need to take advantage of all the help that we can get from the federal government. Our state has yet to expand Medicaid. I tried to do it. They sued me in federal court. We could insure hundreds of thousands of North Carolinians, create tens of thousands of good paying jobs. We can lower insurance premiums for businesses, because guess what? When you reduce the indigent population, you're going to have better results. And we're going to have a healthier North Carolina. But they've refused to do it, and we've got to fight that at every turn.
Yeah. The last panel talked a lot about needing to help those who don't have any college or haven't graduated from college to get better paying jobs. Two pieces of your initiatives is to make community college free, but also to provide additional non-college coursework for those who want to upskill. And just wanted to get a sense if you think those are ideas that could have traction with your Republican legislature. Similar proposals have made it through with bipartisan support in other states. Tennessee is one that comes to mind.
Last dollar free community college is a way for those middle class and working class families to get that education they need to get that better paying job. College affordability is critical. I proposed it, and I've argued to the Republican legislature that this is being done by Republicans because they see the economic benefit that results from it. We're also going to work to try to get kids to understand that there are certain certificates now that can help them with advanced manufacturing and with other good paying jobs. A kid really who is having a hard time affording that 2 or even that 4-year degree could step into a job making 50, 60, 70 grand a year with a certificate. But we have to have our community colleges and our universities that are nimble, that are ready to customize training for these kinds of companies that want to come and expand in our state. And it can be a very positive thing. Investment in education has got to be all the way from birth through higher education. North Carolina has been known for that. We've got a lot of catching up to do. We were at the national average in teacher salaries. We dropped significantly. I have a plan to get back there. Our early childhood has been successful, but it has dropped significantly since Republicans took over. We're going to get back there because now, more than ever, it's a strong economic development argument, and we've got to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that your political opponents have focused on some socially divisive issues. Before your tenure as governor, the state passed HB 2, which was highly controversial law that limited transgender individuals' ability to use the bathroom of their choice. It was a big issue in your campaign and something you have prioritized, seeking a repeal of that law, and were able to get a repeal through the legislature. The ultimate legislation has been controversial, and just wonder if you could talk us through how those issues have played out at your state, in your state.
House Bill 2 was wrong because it wrote discrimination into the law. To tell a transgender kid that you have to go to the restroom that corresponds with your birth certificate is not only discrimination, it's humiliation. What House Bill 2 did was take away every right of LGBT citizens and prevented local governments from enacting anything. Since that law was passed, and actually while it was being debated for the 8 hours that it was debated, I have fought that law every single day. Because not only is it wrong, not only does it discriminate, but it also hurts the reputation of my state. It has hurt our economy and our people. But it all stems from the fact that this legislation was highly discriminatory. My goal is statewide LGBT protections in North Carolina. And I'm going to keep fighting every day until I get to that goal. With the supermajority legislature that's operating on the Hastert rule, that you got to have a majority of your own caucus in order to be able to consider anything on the floor. Even though I wanted clean repeal with no compromise, and a lot of people wanted that, it was not going to be possible over the next at least 2 years. So I had a choice. Do I continue to make a statement and pound on the table and nothing happen? Or do I take a positive step, make progress, and continue to fight? I chose the latter for my state because we got rid of the birth certificate requirement. We opened up the ability of local governments to provide some protections now and some in the future. I'm going to issue an executive order pretty soon that is comprehensive, that helps with LGBT protections, and we're going to keep working every day. We've had a lot of businesses and sporting events and others to come back because, number one, they know we've taken a positive step, but number two, they know my commitment for this in North Carolina. And although it would have been politically and probably emotionally easier for me to keep pounding the table and not accept a compromise, I knew it wasn't right for my state. I knew it wasn't right for LGBT citizens in my state, although I have had hard conversations with a number of my friends about this who would have rather us go 2 years with House Bill 2 instead of taking the compromise. But as governor and as the leader of my state, knowing what it has done to the reputation of my state and the signal that it sends to LGBT citizens and everyone, I knew we had to make a step, and that's why I did it. I think it's the right thing to do. Diversity is our strength. North Carolina is a welcoming state. We just got to make sure that our laws catch up with our people, and we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Right. Well, thank you, Governor.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We could talk for 13 hours, not 13 minutes, but we really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
And you're at the front lines there fighting the fight on our behalf.
Well, I want to
really
thank everyone
appreciate it.
out there for what you are doing, fighting the fight. I know it's hard to see what's happening in our country. Kristen and I were at the National Governors Association hearing the president, and in the state dining room, and I gazed up, and there's a portrait of Abraham Lincoln. And I thought, where are we? Where are we? But you know, that night when my wife and I were back at the hotel, she said, you know, then our country was more divided than it is now, and we made it. We're going to make it because of people like you in this room and all of us working to make sure that we have a North Carolina and a country that works for everybody, and I think that's important. But thank you all.
Thank you. Give yourself a round of applause for the governor.